So one of your key employees, maybe your number two, just resigned and it caught you off guard and you don't know what to do, you don't know how it happened, and you're struggling to figure out what to make of this. Well, first off, there's a few reasons why it could have happened. One is maybe they felt that their runway and their path towards that next step or that next level was stalled. Maybe some promises were made. There were sort of unclear guidelines or unclear objectives in terms of how to get there. And so that could have factored into it. One of the most common causes is misaligned compensation. They don't feel like they're the number two person in the company because their compensation doesn't align with feeling like an owner in the company and an owner of the future success of the company. And so compensation alignment is often a reason. There could have been decision friction or maybe micromanagement. Perhaps they're slow to make decisions. There was lack of autonomy. They didn't feel like they were in control anymore. That's a possibility. There could have been culture shifts or changes, or maybe peer dynamics that changed recently. Some toxic employees, some misaligned politics that could weigh in on a number two person. It could have been fatigue or workload. You've been relying on that person. They've been able to take on more responsibility. So you pile on more to broaden their experiences and get into some different types of responsibilities, but adding and adding and adding without taking any other responsibilities away could factor into that. The other thing is it may not fit their lifestyle anymore. Maybe something changed in their personal situation. Maybe the commutes are too long and they're getting in the way of other things that are going on in their family. They need a more flexible schedule. Usually they would come to you and talk to you about this, but sometimes things change that are beyond their control within their family and they feel like they need to make a change. And perhaps there was just no formal coaching or leadership development investment, so they didn't feel like they weren't invested in the future. And lastly, they were exposed. When some of these things aren't in place, like compensation alignment and investment in their leadership development, it opens them up to a competitor or someone else coming in or getting a call from a recruiter and listening to what they have to say. So how do you mitigate this in the future? How do you help? You can't eliminate the risk. It's always there, but how do you mitigate this in the future? One thing is if you have a key number two person that you're grooming to succeed you in the organization is to ensure that there's real tangible plan in place with dates and with accountability and responsibility from both sides, not just vibes, not just some assurances, verbal assurances. That doesn't make anybody feel more comfortable because anything can change at any time. The second thing is you want to make sure that your rewards and compensation are aligned with that person's growing responsibility in the company. And so ensuring there's bonus pools in place for shared success. Even phantom stock or ghost stock is a great tool to make them feel like they're invested in the success of the company. And if the company does sell down the road, that they will benefit from it instead of worrying about their job. Giving them real decision rights and autonomy and making them feel like they're really in the owner's seat and making those key decisions and those calls, and you just have to be comfortable with some of the outcomes as a result of that, but that's also a great learning experience. Another strategy is to look at building a bench, not a pedestal. Yes, smaller organizations, harder to have a bench, but maybe the collective management team is better than having one key person or successor in the company. Because if you have a strong distributed bench of key functional leaders, you could also bring in somebody from the outside to sort of take over if there isn't the front runner for that role. So just ensuring that there's a breadth in the talent pool. And then finally, investing in their career coaching, in their leadership development, maybe get them involved in a peer group so that they can learn from other CEOs and learn how to be in that seat for when you do decide to move on. So there's a lot of reasons why they could. I didn't cover all of them. There's some really key strategies you can put in place to make sure that this doesn't happen, but it's really tough. It is a gut punch when it happens, but sometimes it could happen for the better. It doesn't look like it's greatest gift of all. It's usually the greatest gifts have very different packaging around it, but maybe it's an opportunity to reassess your situation and how you're developing your talent pool and what that succession plan could look like in the future.